subscribe, and hit the bell to be the first to see the secrets that will shake the political world.
Tonight, Donald Trump revealed a scandal about President Biden that shook the nation. Millions watched as he stepped onto the stage, the cameras capturing every move, every glance. The moment wasn't about words. It was about the truth finally coming to light. Everyone thinks they know Joe Biden, but the real story, the one hidden for years. Tonight, the American people would see it for themselves. Donald Trump took the microphone and spoke with precision. He didn't shout. He didn't exaggerate. Every word landed like a hammer. The American people deserve the truth. Tonight, the truth about Biden comes out. The audience froze. The air felt heavier. Across the country, people paused, waiting. Students, workers, families, all eyes on the screens, all ears listening, all hearts racing. The story that had been whispered in corners, speculated over for years, was now being said aloud. Trump outlined the details carefully, each revelation more shocking than the last. The crowd absorbed every sentence. Every claim was met with stunned silence, murmurs, disbelief. And yet, one figure remained calm. Biden sat quietly, letting the storm pass over him, watching as the world reacted. The tension built. Cameras zoomed in. Social media exploded. Every news channel replayed the moment. And as Trump leaned in, delivering the final line, the weight of the revelation hit like a tidal wave. Now, everyone knows the truth that has been hidden far too long. The auditorium held its breath. The nation held its breath. And for the first time in years, the story wasn't speculation. It wasn't rumors. It was exposed. And the consequences, only time would tell. Trump had exposed the scandal. But the night was far from over. The revelation wasn't just a headline, it was a test of power, perception, and the nation's attention. Everyone watching knew this was bigger than politics. This was about leadership, integrity, and a story that could reshape public opinion. The auditorium crackled with tension. Every journalist leaned forward. Every camera captured every detail. Trump's words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. But the focus wasn't on him anymore, it was on Biden. Would he respond? Would he defend himself? Or would the weight of the revelation leave him vulnerable? Across the country, living rooms became battlegrounds. Families whispered over the words, dissecting every claim. College students paused their lectures, eyes glued to screens. Workers huddled in break rooms, sharing updates, asking the same question: is this true? How will it play out? The scandal was more than personal, it was symbolic. Trump represented relentless exposure, the loud voice that demanded attention. Biden represented experience, patience, and the calm that comes from decades in public service. And now, the two forces faced each other in a story the nation couldn't look away from. Details emerged one by one. Documents, timelines, previously unnoticed interviews, all compiled into a narrative that left no room for ignorance. Each revelation amplified the tension, each pause created suspense, and each fact weighed heavier than the last. Yet Biden remained composed. He didn't react with anger or deflection. His silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. He knew the world was watching, and he understood that the true response had to carry more weight than the scandal itself. The nation waited, breath held, for that moment of clarity, for the statement that would decide how the story would be remembered. Supporters of Trump shared in their hearts, feeling vindicated. Critics braced for damage, some hoping for deflection, some expecting rebuttal. And in every corner of the country, the narrative was being shaped, edited, debated. Social media exploded with discussion. Clips went viral. Opinions polarized. Yet in the center, the truth, or at least the response to it, was still unfolding. And then the question loomed over everyone watching. How would Biden rise? How would he transform the weight of revelation into strength? This wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about proving that leadership isn't measured by exposure or humiliation, but by composure, integrity, and the ability to respond when the world is watching. The stakes were clear. One misstep could define history. One calm word could shift perception forever. And in that suspended moment, millions of eyes stayed glued to screens, millions of hearts raced, and one thing was certain: the night was far from over. The revelation had set the stage, but the true story, the decisive moment, was about to arrive. Donald Trump's career had always been defined by one rule: control the narrative. From boardrooms to rallies, from interviews to social media, every move was calculated. Attention was power, and power was influence. Tonight, he wielded both like a master, exposing a scandal about President Biden that the nation hadn't fully seen before. Trump's presence was impossible to ignore. His voice didn't merely speak, it demanded. Every word, every pause, every glance was designed to captivate. But behind the confidence, behind the bravado, was a man who understood the stakes better than anyone. He knew the power of revelation, the impact of timing, and the thrill of suspense. The scandal he revealed wasn't random. It had been researched, rehearsed, and refined. Every claim was supported, every detail sharpened for maximum effect. Trump didn't simply throw accusations. He constructed a story, a narrative that forced the nation to confront a hidden truth. The timing was perfect, the delivery precise, and the audience, both in the auditorium and across the country, could feel the weight of each statement. Yet Trump's power wasn't only in what he revealed, it was in the reactions he provoked. Politicians shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Journalists paused mid-note, unsure how to frame the unfolding story. Citizens at home whispered, debated, and replayed every clip. Trump thrived in this tension, knowing that attention, suspense, and controversy were tools as sharp as any political strategy. But there was more to this persona than media mastery. There was hunger, a relentless drive to be the loudest, the first, the dominant voice in the room. Trump had built a career out of seizing attention, never yielding, always pushing forward. And yet, beneath the aggression and spectacle, there was calculation. Every revelation served a purpose. Every dramatic pause, every pointed question, was part of a pattern designed to amplify impact. Tonight, the stakes weren't personal, they were symbolic. Trump represented exposure, scrutiny, and the power of holding secrets to light. Biden represented experience, patience, and the calm that comes with decades in public service. And as the scandal unfolded, the contrast couldn't have been sharper. One man commanded attention with force, the other commanded it with presence, with composure, with integrity. The nation watched, captivated. Across living rooms, dorms, and offices, millions felt the tension. Some were drawn to the spectacle, some braced for damage, some debated the implications, and all the while, Trump pushed forward, relentless. Each sentence sharpened the narrative, each revelation intensified the suspense, and each pause pulled the audience deeper into the story. Even in this dominance, Trump faced a challenge. The truth he exposed was powerful, but the response it would provoke was uncertain. How would Biden react? How would the nation interpret the revelation? This uncertainty fueled the suspense, holding the audience captive. And Trump, aware of this, used it, leaning into the anticipation, letting the story breathe, letting the nation wonder, waiting for the moment that could define the night. In this carefully constructed tension, the audience understood one thing clearly. Trump didn't just expose a scandal, he orchestrated a moment that demanded attention, provoked discussion, and reshaped the narrative. And while his methods were bold, his strategy was precise. Every word was a trigger, every revelation a spark, every pause a setup for what was coming next. And as the night wore on, one reality became undeniable. Trump's persona was larger than any single revelation. He had mastered the art of suspense, the power of attention, and the control of narrative. But in that mastery lay a challenge, one that only the next moments could answer: the response of the man at the center of the scandal, and the judgment of the nation itself. Joe Biden's story wasn't built on spectacle or dominance. It was built on decades of experience, patience, and quiet resilience. From his earliest days in public service, he learned that true leadership isn't measured by the loudest voice or the biggest headline. It's measured by integrity, composure, and the ability to face challenges with steady resolve. Born into a family that understood struggle, Biden watched his parents work tirelessly to provide for him and his siblings. He saw what perseverance looked like long before he entered politics. Those lessons weren't theoretical, they were lived. Every late night, every sacrifice, every quiet triumph shaped the man who would one day lead a nation. In the halls of power, Biden's calm was his armor. While others raised their voices, he listened. While others sought immediate victory, he measured every decision, every word, every action. It was a patience forged in the crucible of experience, a patience that would now be tested like never before. When Trump revealed the scandal, the world expected a reaction, expected anger, defensiveness, or a counterattack. But Biden remained composed, because he knew that responding impulsively would feed the spectacle, not the truth. He understood that the power of response wasn't in matching fury, it was in measured clarity, in the quiet force of credibility. Across the nation, millions were watching. Families discussed the implications at dinner tables. Students paused lectures to catch the latest updates. Workers debated in break rooms. Everyone knew this was more than a story about scandal, it was a test of leadership. And Biden's response would define the night. And perhaps the larger narrative. Through years of service, Biden had faced controversies, setbacks, and public scrutiny. He had learned that patience could turn potential disasters into moments of strength, that mistakes could be acknowledged without losing authority, that the public trusted transparency more than theatrics. These lessons were now more critical than ever. But Biden's calm wasn't passivity, it was preparation. Every word, every pause, every glance had the potential to shift perception. He knew that the nation was watching not just to see the scandal, but to see how he would rise above it. This was the true test of leadership, the ability to transform exposure into strength, humiliation into dignity. Supporters of Biden drew confidence from his composure. Critics were forced to pause, unsure whether his silence was weakness or strategy. And in that uncertainty, the story gained tension. Because the audience couldn't predict his move, the anticipation itself became part of the narrative. Every second of silence built suspense. Every heartbeat of expectation made the moment more powerful. As Trump continued to outline the scandal, Biden absorbed each claim, each detail, each implication. He wasn't ignoring it, he was preparing for the response that would matter most. Not just to defend himself, but to speak to the nation. To frame the story in terms of integrity, truth, and leadership that transcended spectacle. In that quiet strength, Biden embodied the contrast to Trump's relentless exposure. One man thrived on revelation, shock, and domination. The other thrived on patience, understanding, and the power of measured truth. And as the night unfolded, it became clear, the ultimate moment wasn't about the scandal itself. It was about how it would be answered, and who would emerge not just unscathed, but stronger. Tonight, Biden's story was about resilience, about the lessons learned from a lifetime of service, about proving that true leadership doesn't seek applause, it earns respect, even in the face of the loudest revelations. And the nation, watching every word, every pause, every silent breath, knew that this was more than a scandal. This was history in motion. And Biden was ready. The scandal had been revealed. The nation had heard Trump's words. But the night was far from over. The true drama was about to unfold. Every eye was fixed on Biden. Every screen recorded every movement. Every second stretched longer than the last. Each heartbeat echoing the anticipation that gripped millions across the country. Trump leaned into the microphone, voice firm and unwavering. The American people deserve answers, he said. Tonight, the truth about Biden cannot be ignored. Each word was deliberate, calculated to provoke, to dominate, to push the story further into the spotlight. The tension in the room was tangible, almost suffocating. Biden remained calm, seated at the front. He didn't flinch, didn't speak immediately. Silence became his weapon. Silence stretched, amplifying the suspense. Millions across the nation wondered, would he defend himself? Would he counterattack? Or would the weight of the revelation force him into a misstep? The auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every subtle expression. Reporters whispered among themselves, noting reactions that might later define headlines. Social media erupted. Clips were shared instantly. The world was watching, waiting for the decisive moment, and the clock seemed to slow with every passing second. Trump continued, voice sharp, pressing every claim, each one delivered with precision. This isn't about politics, he said. It's about accountability. The American people need the full story. His words were a hammer, driving tension higher, forcing the audience to lean in, to absorb the gravity of the revelation. And yet, Biden's calm never wavered. He listened, he measured, he waited for the right moment. His silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. The audience, sensing the storm about to break, leaned closer, hearts pounding. Every eye in the room, every gaze at the screens, was fixed on the man who had to respond without faltering. Minutes passed like hours. The weight of the scandal pressed down on the nation. Trump's supporters felt validation, emboldened by the exposure. Critics felt dread, unsure how the narrative would shift, and through it all, Biden's composure amplified the suspense. The contrast between the relentless accusation and quiet dignity created a tension that was impossible to ignore. Then came the moment. Biden rose, slow and deliberate. Every movement carried weight. Every breath seemed calculated, drawing the nation deeper into the story. Eyes widened. Cameras focused. Millions of viewers held their collective breath, waiting for the first words that could shift the tide. Trump's expression flickered. The confident smirk, the assured dominance, was tested in that instant. He had exposed a scandal? Yes, but the question remained, could it truly break the man who had weathered decades in public life? Could the revelation topple composure? Or would the response redefine the night entirely? Biden stepped forward. Silence fell across the auditorium. The nation felt the gravity of the moment. Every word he spoke now would echo far beyond the walls of the room. Every phrase would be analyzed, every reaction dissected. The story was no longer about the scandal, it was about the response, the integrity, and the quiet force of a leader under pressure. The debate had escalated to its peak. Tension, suspense, and anticipation collided in a single moment. Millions watched, captivated, knowing the decisive turning point was about to arrive. And in that pregnant pause, the nation realized one thing. The night belonged to history, and the climax had only just begun. The auditorium was silent, every eye fixed, every breath held. After the hours of tension, the revelation, the escalation, the moment had arrived. Trump had exposed the scandal. The nation had watched, debated, and whispered. And now, Biden was ready to speak, not with panic, not with anger, but with clarity that would define the night. He stepped forward slowly, each step deliberate, commanding attention. The weight of the scandal hung in the air like a storm cloud, but his composure never wavered. Millions of viewers at home sensed it immediately. This wasn't just a response. This was a reckoning, a moment that would shift perception, and possibly history itself. Biden's voice broke the silence. Calm, measured, precise. Tonight, the truth has been exposed. The questions are loud, the claims are clear, and the scrutiny is intense. But leadership isn't measured by who can shout the loudest, it's measured by who stands firm when the storm arrives. The nation leaned in. The tension was electric. Every revelation Trump had dropped seemed to collide with Biden's presence. His words, his calm defiance. It wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a transformation of the narrative itself. Biden continued, recounting the story behind the scandal, not with defensiveness, not with fury, but with context, transparency, and undeniable facts. Mistakes were made, he said. Lessons were learned. Accountability has never been optional in my life, and it won't start tonight. The truth isn't destroyed by exposure, it's strengthened by honesty. Asterisk, the impact was immediate. Social media erupted. Clips of his statements went viral. Analysts paused, recalculating. Citizens debated, some nodding in approval, others surprised by the composure and clarity. Trump's dramatic revelation had set the stage, but Biden's response shifted the entire story. The scandal was still there, but now it was seen in a new light. A story about integrity, resilience, and leadership under pressure. Asterisk, then came the moment that would define the night. Biden didn't just defend himself, he reframed the narrative. You can expose the past, he said, voice steady, eyes unwavering, but the measure of a leader is not what is exposed against them. It is what they do next. The American people deserve truth, not spectacle. They deserve leadership that rises above noise, that meets challenges with honesty, dignity, and courage. Asterisk, every word landed like a weight. The cameras captured the intensity. Millions held their breath. The story had shifted. The scandal, once the centerpiece, now became the backdrop for an unprecedented display of calm, authoritative leadership. Asterisk, Trump's expression shifted subtly. The confident dominance, the assured smirk, met its first real challenge. He had engineered revelation, but Biden had engineered perspective, resilience, and control. The audience sensed it instantly. The power of exposure was immense, but the power of response, when precise and truthful, was unstoppable. Asterisk, Biden's closing words cemented the moment. This night proves something larger than any scandal, he said. It proves that truth, integrity, and steadfastness can outlast noise. Leadership is not about humiliation. It's about strength, honesty, and the courage to face every challenge with composure. And that is what the nation deserves. Asterisk, the auditorium erupted, not in chaos, but in respect, not in applause alone, but in recognition of the gravity, the composure, and the historic weight of the response. Across the country, citizens replayed the moment. Analysts dissected every line. Families discussed the implications. The scandal had been revealed, but the story had become something far greater. A lesson in integrity, a display of leadership, and a testament to facing adversity with calm authority. Asterisk, Trump had started the night with a revelation meant to dominate. Biden ended it with a response meant to define. And in that balance, the nation saw the true measure of leadership. The scandal was never just about politics, it was about character, resilience, and the enduring strength of composure in the face of exposure. The night had changed everything. The scandal had been revealed. The revelation had shaken the nation. And Biden's response had shifted the narrative entirely. Across America, reactions poured in like a flood, each one carrying the weight of disbelief, awe, and analysis. Asterisk, families replayed clips on living room televisions. Parents discussed it over dinner, dissecting every word, every nuance. Students paused their lectures, murmuring to one another, debating implications, sharing opinions across social media. The moment wasn't just political, it was personal, national, and historic. Asterisk, analysts debated endlessly. Commentators paused mid-segment, rewatching lines, recalculating positions. The scandal, once the focal point, had transformed. It was now a story of leadership under pressure, integrity in the face of exposure, and the power of measured response. Asterisk, supporters of Trump felt shock, disbelief, and the sudden shift of momentum. Some questioned whether the revelations could still dominate headlines. Others marveled at Biden's ability to take control of the narrative without raising his voice, without spectacle, without losing composure. Asterisk, across offices and classrooms, citizens shared their own interpretations. Was this a win for transparency? Was this proof that calm authority outshines aggressive exposure? Opinions clashed, debates ignited, and discussions lasted for hours. The nation was engaged like never before, united by curiosity and suspense. Asterisk, the social media world exploded. Clips of Biden's calm, deliberate response were shared millions of times. Hashtags trended, memes circulated, analysis threads dissected every statement. And in the background, the story continued to evolve because revelation is powerful, but perspective is enduring. Asterisk even Trump's team felt the aftershocks. Advisors whispered, recalculated strategies, and questioned how the night had shifted. The plain momentum of exposure was being overtaken by the power of response. The man at the center of the scandal had not faltered, he had risen, turning vulnerability into strength. Asterisk political commentators noted the subtle shifts in perception. Citizens felt seen, heard, and engaged. The scandal had started as a spectacle of revelation, but it had evolved into a moment of reflection, a story about leadership that transcended conflict, and a demonstration that calm, measured truth can overcome even the most dramatic exposure. Asterisk in towns, cities, and homes across the nation, conversations hummed. The words spoken on stage traveled far beyond the auditorium. Families, friends, and colleagues debated the nuances of character, integrity, and resilience. The scandal remained, but it had become secondary to the lesson it revealed. Leadership is tested not by exposure, but by response. Asterisk the night ended, but the impact lingered. Media outlets replayed the moments, citizens discussed the implications, and social platforms buzzed with analysis. The revelation had rocked the nation, but the response had defined it. The scandal had been exposed, but dignity, composure, and measured strength had won the day. Asterisk and in every corner. One lesson resonated. The story wasn't just about scandal, it was about character, it was about response, and it was about the enduring power of leadership in the face of scrutiny. The aftershocks of that night would ripple far beyond the headlines, leaving an imprint that would be felt for years to come. Asterisk. The night had run its course, the scandal had been revealed, the nation had watched, and the response had shifted everything. But beyond the headlines, beyond the debates, lay a lesson that transcended politics. Leadership wasn't about exposing others, it was about integrity, courage, and composure. Asterisk Biden stood at the podium once more, voice calm, presence commanding. Tonight, he said, we've seen how quickly revelations can dominate attention. But the measure of a leader isn't in the chaos they survive, it's in how they face it, how they respond, and how they rise above it. Asterisk millions of eyes followed every word. Every pause carried weight. Every sentence delivered clarity. The scandal had provided drama, but the response provided perspective. It wasn't about humiliation or dominance, it was about truth, dignity, and the enduring strength of character. Asterisk we live in a world where noise often drowns substance. Biden continued, where spectacle is mistaken for leadership. But tonight, we've witnessed what happens when truth is met with calm, when challenges are met with integrity, and when exposure is met with resilience. That is the leadership the nation deserves. Asterisk the audience, both in the auditorium and across the country, absorbed the moment. Families felt pride. Students felt inspired. Citizens saw a leader who didn't react impulsively, who didn't chase headlines, who didn't yield to drama. Instead, they saw a leader who turned exposure into strength and scandal into reflection. Asterisk every person who has ever faced scrutiny, who has ever been misrepresented, who has ever been put in the spotlight unfairly, Biden said, can learn from this night. Calm, integrity, and measured truth are more powerful than noise, anger, or spectacle. Stand tall, speak clearly, let your actions define you. Asterisk the message was clear. Scandals may shock, revelations may stir chaos, but how one responds defines history. Integrity can outlast exposure, composure can overcome humiliation, and truth, when delivered with courage, can inspire a nation. Asterisk across homes, offices, and schools, the words resonated. Discussions turned from gossip to reflection. Citizens realized that the night wasn't merely about a scandal, it was about character, about resilience, about choosing to respond with dignity when the world expects a fight. And in that lesson, the nation found clarity, strength, and hope. Asterisk Biden concluded, voice steady, eyes unwavering. Tonight wasn't just a moment of revelation. It was a reminder of what leadership should be. It's not the loudest voice that shapes history, it's the one that stands firm, speaks truth, and inspires respect. That is the power we must carry forward. Asterisk, and as the audience absorbed the final words, the nation understood. Scandals will come, controversies will erupt, but leadership rooted in integrity, calm, and courage will endure. This was more than a response. This was a lesson, a moral, a moment to remember, and it would echo far beyond the night, shaping perception, inspiring action, and redefining what it truly means to lead. Asterisk, the night is over, but its impact will last. The scandal was revealed, the story was heard, the response defined history, and now, the lesson remains clear. Dignity, integrity, and calm strength always outlast chaos, exposure, and spectacle. Asterisk, as the screens fade, remember this moment. Leadership isn't about who can shout the loudest, who can dominate headlines, or who can expose others. True leadership is measured by composure, courage, and the ability to face challenges with unwavering integrity. Asterisk, every citizen watching, every family, every student, every professional, this night was for you. Stand tall in the face of criticism. Speak truth when confronted with falsehood. Respond with clarity when provoked. Let your actions define you, not the chaos around you. Asterisk, the story of this night isn't just about scandal. It's about perspective, resilience, and the power of response. Let it inspire you to rise above noise, to choose dignity over humiliation, and to shape your own path with integrity. The lesson is simple, but profound. Your strength isn't in reaction, it's in how you respond. Asterisk, so carry this forward. Share it, discuss it, reflect on it, and remember, moments like this remind us all of the leadership we deserve and the leadership we can become. Asterisk, the night may end, but the aftershocks of truth, composure, and courage will ripple far beyond. Stand proud, speak clearly, lead with integrity, and let the story of this night guide the way.